like. And so here we are. Welcome back to Candace.
Welcome to the new party. I'm Nora Christine, and today we're doing a special edition of the new party. It's your girl Nora Christine. I'm here solo dolo, but that's okay because I got you guys in the chat, so we're gonna have a good show. So today we're gonna discuss the topic that broke headlines this week. Is Kamala Harris really Black? Janet Jackson made headlines when she made the comment that Kamala Harris is not really Black. For those of you guys that may not know about that comment, I'm going to play what the comment was and what started this conversation this week again. So as you guys heard in the chat, she said, I didn't know she was Black. I thought she was white and Indian. So shouts out to everyone tuned in. Shouts out to Alicia. Hello, Norm. I'm excited to see this new show. So let me know in the chat what you think. Give me ones if you think Kamala Harris is not Black. Give me ones. Let me see ones in the chat if you're going with she's not Black. If you think she is Black, let me know. I'm okay because we're going to do a deep dive today. We're going to break it down about her Indian heritage. We're going to break it down about her Jamaican heritage. I see ones in the chat. One's in the chat. One's everybody's going crazy. They're saying that they don't think she's Black. Hi, Catalia. Thank you for tuning in as I do this solo dolo tonight. Hi, Kiera. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Sus. Thank you, Udidi. Thank you so much, y'all, for supporting Jay Zigu. Thank you so much. So, I mean, the chat's going crazy that they don't think Kamala Harris is Black. So we're going to do a deep dive again. Candace Owens was the start of this conversation. Catalia shouts out to Latinos for Trump with Catalia. She said, heels up. Harris is not Black. So let me tell you this. I did a deep dive. I've been investigating the past 24 hours, trying to figure out, is Kamala Harris Black? And I'll tell you my conclusion at the end of where I'm at. So let me play this next clip because I got lots and lots of clips for you today. I'm going to break down the history of Jamaica because that's where the center of this all is. But before we go further, I have to give credit where credit is due. Judge Joe Brown, shouts out to Judge Joe Brown, shouts out to Dana with the Data. They both do the Man Up show. Judge Joe Brown has broken this first. Before Candace Owens deep dive, Judge Joe Brown has been the first Black celebrity, in my opinion, going on mainstream media for the past year, questioning Kamala Harris's race. So let's see what he says on her race.
Himself with us. She did this on a surprise basis. There's $15 million gone. What happened? It's the kind of thing she would do, see. So it's like that was not a good professional performance. And then she was everybody's favorite Hindu Indian prosecutor and attorney general and senator, and now she becomes Black. But, you know, I met her daddy, fine gentleman, Professor Harris. And the problem with her being Black is Professor Harris says he's Caucasian, mixed Irish and Hindu. He doesn't have any Black ancestors, but his Irish ancestors owned a lot of slaves in Jamaica and had them to work on plantation. So if mama is on the birth certificate listed as a Caucasian, daddy says he's a Caucasian Hindu and has no Black ancestors, how did she get to be Black? Now, a little side story. When I had my show, let's say this has been 26 years ago, I had two beautiful women that I thought were sisters on the show. And they laughed one time when we all went to a happy hour and said, you think we're Black, don't you? Yeah, aren't you? No, we're Hindu. One of them said, my mother's a Hindu Brahmin caste, and my father was Hindu warrior caste. He took an oath to the family to protect her. They fell in love, eloped, and now we got a death warrant on us. We can't go back to India.
So yeah, I mean, love the judge and Dana. Definitely love the judge and Dana. Someone's asked me in the chat, is Nora black? So race is a social construct, right? That's what I truly believe. For me, I personally identify as black. My mother is Jamaican, and we're gonna get into the history of Jamaica. Jamaica is a very, very mixed race of people. And my father is Moroccan. It's a country in North Africa. So for myself, I identify as black. Kamala Harris never identified as black before running for the U.S. Senate. When she ran for Attorney General, she ran as being Indian. And all of a sudden, like Donald Trump said, she became black. For years, she did not identify as black. The only thing black about Kamala for years was the fact that she joined she went to a HBCU and she joined a black sorority. That was the only thing that was known to be black about Kamala. Also, her connections with Willie Joe Brown. So that's the issue that honestly people I feel are having. So, I mean, pretty much the chat is still saying ones. They don't think Kamala Harris is black. Let me know in the chat if you think Kamala Harris is black. I want to hear y'all's opinion because I don't want it to be all about me. So going on to the next thing. Judge Joe Brown, he also talks about meeting her dad and what her dad told him. I'm going to play that clip here.
This witch in the LA Times with her sexual escapades. She fucked damn near everybody trying to get up. She used to be a frat hoe when she was at Howard. And she ain't black. You know,
I ain't got nothing to do with this, Miss Harris.
Nah, I mean, well, don't, but she's
I don't know. I'm just listening.
Well, here's the thing. I actually met her father in Jamaica. I was the guest, sat at the governor general's table, and he was a professor.
Okay.
And he represents as a Hindu Brahmin. He admittedly has some Irish in him. All right. The person that Kamala Harris is saying is her black great grandmother is, in fact, according to Daddy, in an article he wrote, which has now been cleaned up on the online edition of that magazine, was a Hindu house servant, not a black woman. So her mother is listed on her birth certificate as Caucasian, even though she's dark, but she's a Hindu Brahmin Tamil caste. Now, interestingly, do you know what the anthropological name is for what Kamala Harris and her parents are?
No, sir.
Indo hyphen Aryan. See, they are the original Aryans, but Adolf Hitler and his boys told a big lie. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans from the far north did not exist, never existed. They were the dark to swarthy to paper bag brown, dark-eyed, dark, coarse-haired Indo-Aryans from India. Those actually settled Germany, and some other people came in from the steppes that lightened everything up a bit. So that lie is being told. So you got the Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Nation. What's going on is the Aryans they claim to be one with look like Queen Harris. You know, I guess what she did is, you know, LA Times ranked her out. I was out in LA, you know.
So pretty much there are some twos going on in the chats. There's some twos, but what the judge was saying in that clip is that he met Kamala Harris's father, and his father identified as Indian and Irish. So we're going to delve into Kamala Harris's family history. There's a lot we have to say. So please continue to let me know in the chat what you think. So I also got a clip of Kamala Harris's Indian side. I just want to be clear. Kamala Harris's family's history. Let's talk about how she came about. She was born in California. Her mother and father separated around the time of 7 or 8. And from there, from her father, Donald Harris's old mouth, they had a contentious custody battle, and he left her life at that point. Okay, so she was raised primarily by her Indian mother. And get this, to be even more interesting, she wasn't raised here in the States. She was raised in Canada. Okay, so another lie that she said that she grew up in segregation in California. Judge Joe Brown debunks this, and he says there was no segregation in California when she grew up. Let's watch that clip right quick.
Kamala Harris.
She's a fraud.
In what respect?
She is an image that's been carefully crafted. You can start with what she is. She has a certain paint job, but that doesn't make her what she claims. And we have somebody that has a fabricated reality. I was just mentioning it a minute or two ago. She talks about she was that child on the bus integrating the schools. And if this was in California, I don't get it, because at that point I was a school teacher in LA, California, and we didn't have segregated schools. When she got in kindergarten, first, I was a playground director with the city school system. We didn't have segregated schools in the entirety of California. Both of my parents were school teachers. What they did is they shuffled the teachers around, but
right.
You went to school in your neighborhood. So I don't know where that study came in. So smoking dope in the dorm rooms, listening to Tupac. He was 11 years old when she was in the dorms, and when he cut his first single or release, he was 21, and she was a prosecutor in Alameda County, California. So
that was the story she
where
told.
do we go with somebody that will tell those things? Yes.
And she was that was the story she told to Charlamagne the God.
Foundation.
So, yeah, as you can see there, the judge lays it out pretty clearly. A lie number 55 that she's told. She said that she was a part of the segregated school system. That was a lie. I mean, there's just so many lies here, okay? I want to say shouts out to Kiera, shouts out to Jordan, shouts out to Jordan for helping me come up with this concept. Gen Zers in the house. Yeah, you know, something that Kiera's writing in the chat. So do you think that Kamala has Indian in her? Yeah, absolutely, she's Indian. I think that the Indian is on both sides, and we're going to get to that. I 100% think she was a purebred Indian race from her mother's side. Her mother's family goes back generations. They were very high up. Her grandfather was like somebody very high up to the prime minister. And so very, very important history that she has there. And also, we're going to get to her daddy's history. Okay. Do I think that Kamala Harris has some black in her? Yes, I do. And I'm going to tell you why. I did hours of research, but do I think she's black per se? No, I don't. Kamala Harris does not identify as black. The only time she has is now when it's time for her election. She was not raised by black parents. Her father did not raise her. Her father was not in her life. So for this reason, I don't think she's black. And we're going to get to that because, again, race is a social construct. And we're going to break down what that means in the show. So I appreciate y'all's questions. I appreciate y'all's thoughts on this. We're going to play one of her family members now from her Indian side. We're going to play her Indian auntie talking about her.
She told her what to do and she told her to fight for everything. You know, that is the kind of a thing.
Ma'am, and also now you can see that Kamala Harris has risen to such a high position. Do you see the same streak of rebellion that you saw in her mother in Kamala Harris and in the way she has actually fought her way to the top?
Yes, definitely. Because Shamla would have been very happy had she been alive. Unfortunately, she died very young. But, you know, she would have been very happy because she brought them up to come up to this level. And I knew Shamla when Kamala was first fighting for the DA post in San Francisco. I was in California at that time. And Kamala was thinking of standing for the DA post. And we were talking about it and we knew about it. And from that time, I knew that Kamala wanted to get somewhere. And she said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to become the DA. And that's how she did. She became a DA, then she became an Attorney General, then she became a senator. You know, that is the kind of a thing.
Ma'am, in fact, we came to know via reports that you had broken coconuts for Kamala Harris during her course as a...
There was a little, when the Attorney General post was there was a slight confusion in the counting of the post because that was a fight between the DA of California, DA of San Francisco and DA of Los Angeles. So there was a little confusion. So overnight, we were on the computer trying to see whether the votes had been counted. So at that time, on some confusion, I had prayed, and then I went and broke 108 coconuts, you know.
All right. So as y'all can see here, Kamala Harris's auntie is extremely Indian, grew up with her, was raised by her. And a question that someone posed is, what religion is Kamala Harris? Is she Hindu? I don't know what she is. She said when she grew up, she went to an Indian church and she went to a Baptist church. So I am really confused how, with this Indian mom that she has that is clearly Hindu, how she went to a Baptist church. I think, again, another example of pandering. Shouts out to my daughter Kiara. I'm teaching her how to be involved in politics. I'm gonna let her say hi.
Hey, hi guys.
Okay, so it's important for this new generation to be involved in politics. And so shouts out to all of them being engaged. I will say, when I was her age, I didn't know what the heck was going on. Someone in the chat wrote she had some black in her. Ask Willie Brown. So again, that's the biggest controversy. Again, Willie Brown and her had this affair for many years. I've already said, you know, how I feel about her. Someone, Scott DeRock, said she wants to be black to get the black voters. Black voters are brainwashed, but they are waking up a little. Yes, I absolutely believe they are finally getting off the plantation, because I say we cannot be loyal to one party. We need to start voting for issues and voting for people that represent our interests. And she doesn't. So we're gonna get into some more clips here. We're gonna have a lesson today on some history. So I just want to say Candace Owens really did a good job deep diving. So I'm not trying to take away from her and take flowers from her. I'm gonna give her flowers, but I'm gonna have to correct her on some things. First, something Candace Owens said, I mean, that I did not agree with. She said she doesn't understand why the father, in the essay that she refers to, which we're going to talk about next, why he talked this in a funny language. First of all, Jamaican patois is the dialect that's spoken in Jamaica. Now, it is not the only dialect. Jamaicans speak proper English as well. For many years, Jamaica was under the rule of Britain, okay? So it is not uncommon to speak in Jamaican patois. I know patois. All of my friends that are of Jamaican heritage, we all speak it. We all joke. What's up, Bregin? Wagwan, how you doing? So that's just how we talk. So I thought that was a little offensive when she said that. It was almost like she was saying, like, he's trying to do it to prove a point. So before I pull up his article, which is the crux of all of this, I want to play a clip from a white Jamaican, because many people don't know this, but Jamaicans are not just black. There are many kinds of Jamaicans, and we're going to learn today. There's Indian Jamaicans, there's Chinese Jamaicans, and there's white Jamaicans. And I'm going to play a clip of a white Jamaican now.
Part of black culture.
I believe I'm a part of the Jamaican culture.
Okay.
What's the difference to you?
The difference to me is that what is the black culture, you cannot just define black culture as black culture, because it varies. I relate with the Jamaican culture because it's a culture that I grew up in. You know, we have black British culture, so that's a different thing. But to me, black British culture is a merge of like Jamaican, Caribbean, and Africa and England together. That makes the black British culture. That's what I would say. But I cannot define in one sentence to say this is black culture, because it's...
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
When did you decide that you were Jamaican? Was it when you came back over here? Was it when someone asked you? Like, was there an experience where you just felt, I identify as a Jamaican man?
Let me explain to you there. And I don't know if I've ever said this on an interview anywhere yet, but my mother, before me, she had a miscarriage. So when she was pregnant with me, she could have gave birth to me in Jamaica.
Right.
But where we live, the hospitals weren't great. So obviously she has that opportunity to leave. Once she had me and did the checks, 3 months on a plane back to Jamaica. So from there until what I know, has been that. So it's not like I wake up one day and say, oh, 5-year-old, I want to be Jamaican. Oh, 10-year-old, I think I'm Jamaican. 12-year-old,
cool.
I'm definitely Jamaican.
Yeah.
It's just what's inside. You understand what I mean, brother?
To call yourself a Jamaican, that's interesting, because you said that you weren't born there. But I guess if the community to which you kind of were raised in, which is Jamaica, obviously, if they've embraced you, the large swaths of them and stuff, and if you've got citizenship, I don't know if you have, but yeah, from where I come.
Harry, do you have a Jamaican passport?
Yes, I do.
So,
Cool.
so I find it interesting as well, because how do you decide?
So yeah, as you guys can see here, Jamaicans are all kinds of shades, colors, races. So Jamaica is not just filled with black-skinned African people. There are white Jamaicans. So that proves point number one. Is it possible that Kamala Harris's father is not African black like we would think of in this country? Yes, that proves it right there. It is very well possible. Now, we're going to go and take a look at this article that her father wrote that Kamala Harris refers to. So, Kamala Harris's father wrote this, and it says Reflections of a Jamaican Father by Donald J. Harris. So this is the line that Candace Owens was referring to. As a child growing up in Jamaica, I often heard it say, but my parents and family friends, remember where you come from. To this day, I continue to retain the deep social awareness and strong sense of identity which that grassroots Jamaican philosophy fed in me. As a father, I naturally sought to develop the same sensibility in my two daughters. So this is where he breaks down. We could skip the next paragraph. So he says, my one big regret is that they did not get to know the two most influential women in my life, Miss Chrissy and Miss Iris. So these are his grandmothers. He says his roots go back to his paternal grandmother, Miss Chrissy, descendant of Hamilton Brown, who is on the record as plantation and slave owner and founder of Brownstown. Now, I looked up this person who he's referring to, and I found that the family is saying, I never heard of you. How are we related? That was what their response was to him. How that they never knew of him. And again, another interesting point was allegedly this grandmother that he has, she's a black African looking woman, which is her right here, and allegedly she was married to a Caucasian white man, which was the owners of the slaves. Now, I asked my mother, is it possible in the 1800s if an African woman could have been married to a white man? And she said, yes, it is very well possible. Now, remember, Jamaica was not like America in the 1800s. Slavery in Jamaica ended many years before it ended here in the States. So we have to think of it like that. Also, it was more of a melting pot and more accepted to be mixing of the races there than it is here. So we have to keep that in mind too. So who he's saying she is she's this descendant of Hamilton Brown, who's on the record as a plantation and slave owner. The Harris name comes from my paternal grandfather, Joseph Harris, landowner and agricultural produce exporter. This is the man who was of Irish descent and who was a white man. And I looked up, so I want to also tell you guys, I did my own search of this picture because, you know, again, the alleged picture that really sparked all of this was a faked picture we later found out of Kamala Harris and her alleged grandmother, Beryl. And we're going to get to that. But I looked up this picture, and this picture is a legit picture. So I will have to say that it was not a faked picture. So we're going to get into another clip where we get into the history of Jamaican history and how it is to be a mixed race and how it works. So let's watch the Jamaican history on race.
Indians, Chinese, Spanish, Tainos, Syrians, Lebanese. The Spanish, May 1494. Africans, 1513. British, 1655. Indians 1845, Chinese 1854, Syrians and Lebanese 1890s. The contribution of the different ethnic groups to Jamaica. The Tainos, the British. They were the second European country to colonize Jamaica for over 300 years. The British introduced the following foods. The Africans. They came to provide free labor on sugar plantations, to work as indentured servants on the sugar plantations. The Indians introduced several plants and trees. Coolie plum.
Guys, this timeline so you can look through it. Anything that is italicized means that it's still a question mark. We're still wondering whether or not this document could be Beryl or could be somebody else, and we're awaiting a confirmation. What we know for a fact is that Beryl was born in 1917. We know this because we have the birth certificate, and Iris's name, which is Beryl's mother, is listed as Iris Finnegan on the birth certificate. Again, Beryl is spelled slightly differently, but we know because of Kamala's book that name spelling shifted over the years and was also spelled with a Y. We then have a document, and this is highly suspicious, that Beryl birthed Donald Harris. Allegedly, this could be Kamala's father. The only problem is that we're looking here not at a birth certificate, but a death certificate, which would put the birth of Donald around 1938. It looks like this infant died just a few months short of turning 2 years old. So could have been born in 1938, died in 1940 November. And it says, oddly, that this is the son of Albert Harris. So that's confusing. But this is the only document that we could find for a Donald Harris that has a mother named Beryl Harris. And again, that Donald died. So this one is a question mark. We know for a fact, however, that Beryl Magdalene Finnegan was married in 1944. She was 25 years old. We have that marriage certificate, and she was married to Lawford Newland. And here is where things get strange, because we were able to locate the divorce document between Lawford Newland and Beryl Magdalene, and that divorce took place in 1956. Okay, so they were married. That would mean if Donald Harris, J. Harris, was in fact born, Kamala's father was in fact born in 1938, and they didn't divorce until 1956, and he grew up with Beryl, as he signifies in his book, My Mother, Miss Beryl, or in his Jamaican paper that he wrote about his ancestral roots, that would mean throughout the majority of his young life, from the time he was 6 to the time he was 18, his mother, Miss Beryl, was married to Lawford Newland, and yet he declines to mention Lawford Newland at all.
So, shouts out to Scott the Rock. Thank you for tuning in. He says, I believe Kamala is racist. My opinion. I've heard her say something crazy things about other human beings. Scott, let me know in the chat what you've heard her say that was racist. But I do think she's a racist, because I think she's pandering to the Black American people by running around and saying she's Black. She's never done anything for Black people in this country. She never identified as Black, again, before running for Senate. So thank you for your comments. So going back to this article that Kamala Harris that Candace Owens was referring to, is he talks about here, he goes into this deep dive, and he refers to his mother as Miss Beryl and loving father as Moss Oscar. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, did you growing up, did you refer to your mom and dad as other names? And she goes, no, we refer to them as mommy and daddy. So I got to give it to Candace. She did have a point that culturally it's odd the way he referred to his mother as Miss Beryl, like as if she was the help or something. And, you know, I got to agree with her on questioning this, because that photo that y'all know Kamala Harris posted of her grandmother Beryl, I'm going to pull that photo up. It's just really odd that the photo obviously is a fake. It's not real. Like, it's just real convenient that she refers to her and she put this fake photo when the woman is no longer with us. She died in like 1960. So how is that possible? I'm going to show the photo now of the photo that Candace Owens was able to prove that this lady's no longer around anymore. It's just amazing to me. So it begs the question, and she's lying about something as dumb as this. What else is she lying about? But in regards to her race, to keep it on that subject, I'm questioning, is she really of Jamaican descent? Or is she of African Jamaican descent? I truly believe that her father is her father. You know, Candace Owens went on this deep dive and she said, I don't think it's her father. No, I'm not going to go that far. I think it is her father. They look alike. They bear resemblance. And I'll show that picture of him next, because I think that's taking it a little too far. But what I will say is, I don't believe he is of full African Jamaican descent. I think his descent is Irish, Indian, and maybe some African, but mainly maybe she's probably like a 10th African. So that's why I would agree with, I don't believe that she's black. So let's get into this next clip. We're going to go into who Donald Harris is, because she cannot find a birth certificate for Donald. If y'all find a birth certificate of Donald, please let me know.
That they had filed for an annulment in 1971. But again, we cannot locate the marriage certificate, and I find that to be problematic. What we do know, by the way, so that you guys don't go off in the wrong direction, is that the mother is listed as Goplin Iyer. So we were at first looking for Shyamala Iyer. It looks like when they were married, she was married under just Goplin Iyer. And so if you're going to try to locate this marriage certificate, I would suggest editing to looking for her name in particular. My instinct is that he maybe had a different name that he was using, a different legal name that he was using. And then there is the problem with his entire story that he presents when he writes about his Jamaican heritage. His memory is either extremely faulty or he's an outright liar. In his memory, he writes that he completely neglects to include the fact that his mother, who he calls Miss Beryl, was married to Lawford Newland and remained married to him for 12 years of his life, from the time he was 6 until he was 18 years old. That is a major problem. You don't forget that when you're writing about your upbringing. Yeah, actually, she was married to somebody else. He recounts growing up with Oscar Harris, right? Mass Oscar, as he refers to him, and Miss Beryl. But both of them were married to other people when he was growing up, not to one another. This is why we cannot find a marriage record between Beryl and Oscar. My conclusion is they were never married. They were never married because Oscar was married to his wife, Vioris, until he died in 1976. So Donald's story makes entirely no sense. He lied or he misremembered. And in fact, the only scenario in which he is telling the truth about all of them being there on the farm at the exact same time is if Miss Iris was actually Vioris, the white woman, okay, who was married to his father, Oscar Harris, Mass Oscar, with the domestic help, Miss Beryl Finnegan, and who died young, and her mother, Iris Finnegan, on hand. That could make sense to me, right? Because I understand how that works, how an entire family will work on a farm for another family. As you know, my grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the South. This would have been around that same time. My grandfather was born in 1942. So I could see that making sense. But then again, we would have to arrive at the diabolical conclusion that she turned the help into her family. because she wanted the public to think that she had a blacker history of some description. But as I said, we still have a major Donald Harris problem. We have no birth certificate, and
yeah, so as you guys can see, there's no paper trail of Donald Harris. So shouts out to the comments. Scott said, I seen a video where she's talking about excluding white people, especially men, from working. And he said the video I was referring to had more than Kamala in it. It had AOC. They were talking about excluding white men from working, but get this, they are both married to white men. I know. Facts. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. And that was why I said Kamala Harris does not live a black life. She has a white husband, white stepchildren. I mean, it blows my mind. Blows my mind. The only thing black about Kamala Harris, again, is that she went to a HBCU and she joined a black sorority. So we're going to keep deep diving here. And, this is all great stuff. Going back to this article that he had made, let me show you the pictures that he has posted in it. And this right here is allegedly Miss Iris with great granddaughter Kamala. And then he also pointed a map of Jamaica up. This is Kamala Harris and her father with her niece. Now, again, Candace has made too deep of a dive for me personally. She's trying to say that this man is not Kamala Harris's father. No. Candace, I love you, but respectfully, I disagree. I think this is her father. Oh yeah, that's her father. That man looks like her. I mean, let me know in the chat what y'all think. Do y'all think that she bears resemblance to him? Like, I think they look alike. But the woman that Candace found, let me tell you, she looked like her too. And we're going to play that clip next. So this next clip that I'm going to play, Candace gets into who is Vioris Harris. We're going to get into that next.
What we know for a fact about her is that she was born in 1927. We were able to locate her birth certificate. Yes, Vioris Cambridge was born in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. We know, again, as we already mentioned, that she married Oscar Joseph Harris, and we know that because there was a huge announcement about the wedding. And then we wanted to be able to track how long they stayed married for. Did they actually stay married until he died? And it looks like they did, in fact, stay married until he died. And this is how we know. Her name appears in that Daily Gleaner in 1966. So in the corner there, you can see that it says Vioris Harris. It says Mrs. Vioris Harris, implying that she is still married and she has been appointed to the senior postmaster position. So we know that they were still very much married at this time. And then we know that he died in 1976 and she kept his name by choice, okay, when she was naturalized in the United States, okay? We found her documents of naturalization. I'm going to show that to you. This is in 1991. And there is a portion of this where it explicitly asks her if she wants to change her name. So she has the option here to go back to Cambridge. Her husband is now dead, and she decides she doesn't want to do that. You can see number 4 there. I request that my name be changed to none. So when she was naturalized, she kept her married last name, which is Vioris Anita Harris. So major problem here, again, when we get into Donald J. Harris's story that he told in the newspaper about his Jamaican heritage.
So yes, shouts out to you again, Scott. Thank you for watching. He said, yeah, but I'm with you. All 3 look alike, really, by yes. That looks like her dad to me. So yeah, it's not a question if Donald Harris is Kamala Harris's father. That's not a question to me. Where my question lies is his history authentic the way he's presenting it? That is the question. And let me tell you, the woman that she posted that she's alleging married his father, Oscar, supposedly would have had him at 11 years old, but record keeping wasn't that great back then. So who's to say she didn't have him at 14 years old? And then they had a shotgun wedding later on. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. The records, again, weren't that great back then. Katalia said, I agree. She looks like him. So I truly think that this woman that Candace found could still be her grandmother. And this is the last clip that I'm going to play in regards to Vioris.
Funeral. Vioris was, as we mentioned, buried in Broward County. She was buried on June 29th, 2019. And if I'm correct here, and Kamala has known her throughout her entire life, she probably would have made sure she was down there in Broward County. Well, what we do know for a fact is that on the day before the funeral, Kamala was right up the road in Miami, on stage at the Democratic primary debate. Of course, this could just be a coincidence that she was in Florida. We know for a fact the day before the funeral, but it would also be a coincidence that they waited 2 weeks after Vioris's death to bury her. So Vioris died on June 15th, and they didn't bury her until 2 weeks later on June 29th. That is irregularly long. The only time I've ever seen that ever, I'm not kidding, in all of the funerals that I have attended in my lifetime, was when.
Okay, Candace. Again, another thing I'm not going to agree with Candace about. I think Candace is a little disconnected from reality. She's been rich a little too long. I've seen funerals go 2 weeks. Sometimes funerals take 2-3 weeks. You got to get the finances together. You got to get the insurance policy. So we don't know their financial situation. However, the fact that they scheduled it the day after the Democratic debate, to me, is not coincidental. That I will give her. Scott said, now I agree. Now I heard Kamala's parents both had jobs working for the government. But I bring this up because they were not poverty or poor. Yeah, absolutely. Again, shouts out to everybody in the chat engaged, and thank you so much. Like I said in the beginning of the call, Kamala Harris's mother came from very high stock in the Indian government. Okay, she was not poor by no means. By no means. And Kamala Harris's father, if he's telling the truth about his history, his family has something. They started a town in Jamaica called Browntown. So yeah, they were not poor, and they were professors. Okay, working for institutions such as Stanford. Okay, they pay pretty well. So I know she wasn't poor. Next clip we're gonna play though. Again, I gotta agree though with Candace. I tried finding. I've looked for hours the past day, and I could not find a birth certificate for Kamala Harris's father. Facts. So it's just very coincidental that no one can find his birth certificate. No one can find his history. In fact, Candace stumbled upon something that's very interesting, and I'm going to play it.
And that child was Kamala's father. That's what we are told, that his only child was Donald J. Harris. But something's not right there, because if you look at this death certificate, look at the bottom here. You see that the person that is the informant letting them know that he died is Christopher Harris. And when you look under, it asks, what is your qualification? Essentially, what is your qualification to inform? And it's his son. It says in parentheses, his qualification is son. And so his son was there, and his son's name is Christopher Harris, not Donald Harris. And I'm just wondering, who is Christopher Harris? This is a major question mark. Donald Harris, do you have a brother named Christopher Harris? If not, is Donald Harris actually the son of Oscar Harris? We'll get into more of that later. Okay, now let's look at Vioria Anita Cambridge Harris, because we know that she got married. What we know for a fact about her is that she was born in 1927. We were able to locate her birth certificate. Yes, Vioris Cambridge was.
So yeah, I have a link of who this Vioria Harris Cambridge is. Now, I want to show y'all this. This is kind of crazy. This is why I said I think this lady could be her grandmother. Maybe this is the real barrel. Let me show y'all what this lady looks like, and y'all tell me what y'all think in the chat. But bam. Does she look familiar? I'm looking at Kamala Harris's daddy and her. Okay? I'm convinced that this woman is possibly her grandmother. I'm actually convinced by it. I don't believe that she was no 11 years old when he was born. What I believe is she was probably 14 and she had him in a time where you had to lie about things. That's what I think. I think they pinned this on the help, Beryl. They said Beryl, that he got Beryl pregnant and had the baby with Beryl so they could hide that she had a baby out of wedlock, and she could hide that she had a baby probably at 14 years old. That's what I think. I don't know, y'all. That's my theory. My theory is this woman had him at 14 years old out of wedlock. Remember, this was the 1940s, y'all. Okay. Although Jamaica was different as far as, race mixing in America, they weren't different in being a conservative at that time. Okay. It was not okay to get divorced, and it was not okay to have babies out of wedlock. What's interesting too is she really don't talk about who her family is. Like, it says, she will be lovingly remembered by her children and spouses, grandchildren and spouses, great grandchildren, cousin, niece, and nephews and friends. Stop right there. We cannot find any evidence that this woman had any children. Okay, allegedly, her and her husband, Kamala Harris's father, did not have children together. Okay. Katalia says this woman looks more believable. What a tangle web we weave when we practice deceit. Yes. And the fact that allegedly her and Mr. Harris didn't have any children, but it's talking about her grandchildren. What grandchildren? What children? Doesn't say stepchildren, step grandchildren, because she got remarried. It says her children. And mind you, when she got remarried, she was in her 60s. So it can't be her children naturally with this new husband. Okay. Yeah, Katal, you are so right. Webbs, yeah, so it's lies. They playing in our faces, y'all. And this is the issue I have with the Democratic Party. They are lying about stupid stuff. You gotta lie about your family. This is the issue I have with them, okay? If you could lie about your race and your family, what else did you lie about? I got to give it to Barack Obama. He was pretty straightforward, and I do believe he was pretty honest. He said he was born by a white mama, and the white mama raised him. He didn't pretend that he had any ties, but he also had a black wife and black children. So to me, that's why he was a little bit more palpable, okay? And lastly, the last clip is, where is Kamala's daddy's birth certificate? She talks about this again.
Grandmother, Vioris would have had to have birthed Donald Harris, Kamala's father, when she was just 11 years old. I find that to be extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely that Vioris, and she would have been at Cambridge then, so they would have had to have had some sort of affair before they got married, okay? So he was born in 1938. She would have had to have been pregnant when she was 10, right? She would have been pregnant in 1937, gave birth in 1938. Then they decided to hold off on the wedding until 1944. Maybe they did. Maybe he got a 10-year-old pregnant and they waited until she was older to get married. But I think that's extremely unlikely that an 11-year-old girl gave birth. And if she did give birth, I don't think her father would have walked her down the aisle as he did. We learned that from the entry in the Gleaner, the Daily Gleaner. It was announced that her father, V.S. Cambridge, held her hand as they walked down the aisle. I think your dad, if some random person knocked you up at the age of 10, probably wouldn't have done that. He probably would have chased him with a shotgun. I'm imagining here, but that was what we would have to believe in order for this to be Kamala's grandmother. And the other thing that I keep asking myself is, why lie about this? Why is Kamala hiding this woman who she's very clearly closely related?
Again, I go back to my theory, y'all. I don't believe this girl was 11. I believe she was 14, had this baby out of wedlock, okay? And this is the family secret. This is the family lie. How many people or stories have y'all heard about where people sent little girls away to go and have babies back then, and then come back and then said another family member had the baby, or said the maid or the help had the baby? That's my theory, y'all. That is my theory, and I'm sticking to it. I believe this is her grandmother, but I'll play the rest of the clip.
Related to. That's the other issue that I have, because okay, yeah, I get it. They always want to lean into being Black, but people don't have a problem if you just have one white grandparent. You know, she could have tried to grift this in a different way. She could have tried to complicate it in a different way, but she was dead set on hiding this woman. Why? There's something here that we're missing about Vioris Cambridge Harris that presents a problem for Kamala Harris. Is it because of the age gap? Maybe. The thing is, Donald J. Harris is the biggest problem in our story. We keep arriving at the Donald J. Harris problem. This is what we need to really focus all of our attention to, because we don't have any birth certificate for him, despite the fact that we have birth certificates for everyone else around him. We've got birth certificates for his uncles. We have birth certificates for his father. We have birth certificates for every single person in his orbit. We have birth certificate for Vioris. There's no reason. It's very clear that they had no troubles keeping records in this family. But there's no birth certificate for Donald J. Harris.
Yeah, no birth certificate because she secretly went off and had him out of wedlock, probably in the countryside in the mountains of Jamaica. Again, I strongly think that my theory is very closely there. It's clear that this is his child. So now let's get to the crux of it. Is Kamala Harris Black? So CNN allegedly went and they interviewed some of her Jamaican cousins. I'm going to play the clip and we could dissect it.
Her father is an Indian, right? Her father is Jamaican. So she can't just turn Black. She has it within her. This is Kamala Harris. And this is me. This is Donald. And I think that's Kamala. This one was taken at her grandmother's home. Very smart. Ask a lot of questions from babyhood. They would ask her things that I didn't even know about. She used to jump off the physical cliffs and so on and play. So this is the community area. We are from Jamaica once more again, and it's Jamaica to the world. So it's a happy moment. Even talking to you now, I feel some sort of tears from my eyes too. You know, it's like tears of joy, you know. I'm very happy for her. I'm not fizzled by what Donald Trump has.
So this man is allegedly her cousin, and he's of Jamaican descent. He looks to me that he's biracial, right? Like that he has some European influence in him, possibly even some Indian influence in him. It's not far off because I have family members in my family on the Jamaican side. They're not direct relation, but they're cousins by marriage, and they have Indian in them, and they look like this. So again, I'm starting to believe more and more what the judge said about her father, okay? That he is of Irish and Indian descent. Yeah, he's Jamaican. I'm not going to go as far and say he's not like Candace is trying to say. I mean, clearly the man is Jamaican. Now, I think it's a family secret again. And then the last clip that we're going to play is about what is race and the history of race. And then we're going to conclude, and y'all can let me know in the chat based on the information I showed y'all. Do y'all think Kamala Harris is Black?
AKA physical appearance, did you know that it was largely considered a category of kinship or group affiliation? In the 16th century, we started to see the use of the word race in English, but it isn't attributed to physical traits or behavior. It meant quite literally that you were all members of the same household, group, or shared a common ancestor. Why did we see the shift in the idea of race in the 17th and 18th century? The answer to this question is firmly rooted in two things: the rise of global capitalism that was backed by slavery and colonialism, and a period of theorizations in Europe known as the Enlightenment, and indentured British laborers. There are some important distinctions from Europeans. So in order to continue to justify slavery, we start to see the pseudoscience of race emerge that connected physical features, behavior, and legal rights right around the 18th century when colonial use of slaves was expanding. Anthropologist Audrey Smedley notes that scientists scientific ideas about physical appearance and racial difference in the 18th century were largely folk ideas used to justify already existent social norms. So as a result of a desire to perpetuate systems of exploitation, more and more distinctions were made about the supposed differences amongst races, primarily the differences of black people from their white counterparts. This evolution of race became more concretized after social structures of slavery were in place, and not before, and was solidified by the Enlightenment. Which brings us to our third question. How did the Enlightenment impact definitions of race? The Enlightenment was a period of primarily European thought and ideological development that saw the emergence of some key concepts that tie back into today's discussion. First, there was a push in scientific communities to categorize the natural world using reason and creating elaborate hierarchical systems that emphasize the similarities between different species and subgroups and the inherent differences amongst others, and race was fitted into this same mold. As logical, the Enlightenment formulation of history also played a crucial role in the development of social ideologies of race. Kant, Hegel, and other philosophers of their day claimed that certain racial groups stood outside of history or had no history, and this included all groups that they considered non-white or outside of European ideals of modernity. This meant that groups that were devoid of history and culture were inherently less valuable and therefore subordinate to other races, and they were cast as the natural sacrifices of progress. In his book, Whiteness of a Different Color, European Immigrants and the Alchemy of Race, historian Matthew Jacobson notes that in the US, white or Caucasian was not always considered a unified race composed of anyone of European descent. Whiteness was often considered exclusive to Anglo-Saxon descendants, while other European groups were broken into different ethnic categories such as Celt, Slavs, Iberics, and Hebrews, which were considered separate races from the 1840s to the early 20th century. But in the 1920s, when there was a stemming of immigration from Europe, these different races were subsumed into one category called whiteness to shore up a cultural majority against other racial groups and immigrants, and this persisted throughout the 20th century. So how does it all add up? Well, race started as a marker of kinship, but then we see it shift to become less about familial inheritance and more focused on physical indicators due to the rise of Enlightenment reasoning and labor exploitation. But where does that leave us today? Well, in the past several decades, scholars have noted both an uptick in identifying with your ethnic history, for example, pride in your country or culture of origin, instead of just being white or black, but we've also seen a revival of outdated theories of race being biologically determined and attached to certain traits, like
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Scott said, now I'm a little older. So now get this. If I seen Kamala on the street and someone asked me what she was, I'd say she's Indian. She looks Indian to me, and I think Indians are great. So why not just right. So why lie?
AKA
I mean, I have to
appearance.
agree with you. Why lie? Like, why not just be proud of where you're from? And that's the issue we all have. So that's where it gets down to Scott. I have to agree with you. She's a racist, because you're pandering to black people to say you're black when you're not. I mean, at the end of the day, race is a social construct, okay? Race is who you identify as, in my opinion. Race is culturally what you feel in your heart, what you are. Yes, I have to agree. Where your family's background is, what group you identify with. But nothing about her is black. She doesn't have a black husband. She doesn't have black kids. In fact, who remembers watching her at the DNC just last month, where she brought up all them Indian people with her as her family? I didn't see now one black family member other than her goddaughter. Her goddaughter was the only black person she brought on that stage, y'all. Yeah. Indians are great, so claim it. She just wants the black vote. And why not just claim the Indian vote? I guarantee you, there are more Indian people in this country right now than black people, than foundationally black people. There are more, because there are a billion Indian people around this world. Why not claim the Indian vote? Why not claim the Asian vote and get that vote? Why do you have to pander to black people? And this is the issue I have with the Democratic Party, and why we need to get off the Democratic plantation as a group of people. They do not care about our issues as a people. They do not care about the issues of America as a people. They just want to pander to whatever group they can. And let me tell you guys, this is probably the last election that they're going to pander for the black vote because they opened the border and they brought in another group of people to connect to. And that's why that's why they picked Kamala Harris, because she's connected with the black vote. Somebody wrote, 70 said, she is a woman of color with a little black people, making her more black than she really is. Her 4 years at Howard introduced her to black culture. Before that, she didn't have any experience. Facts. And that's what I said earlier. Thank you for watching. That's what I said earlier. She didn't, listen, y'all, this is not racism, okay? She didn't even grow up in this country. Y'all are giving us the first black woman when she didn't even grow up in this country, okay? I grew up in this country. I was born in Hollywood, Florida. And I would understand as a child of immigrants, and people were offended that I ran to be president. I don't think I should run to be president because I'm not foundationally from this country. I'm not offended by that, by no means. Do I think I should have a chance for office? Absolutely, because I'm a tax-paying citizen. I follow the law. You know, I'm a good citizen. But to be president, that's why y'all got to know the Constitution writes for this. You got to be born in this country. There's a reason why the Constitution writes for this. Scott said, because Indians and Asians are smart and can read right through her. Facts. I was on spaces with Dana with the data and Judge Joe Brown. And this woman came up. She is from California. Dr. X, shouts out to her. She said, you know, I didn't know she was black. She was Indian. That's how we knew. But the Indian people don't like her. They don't want to claim her. Even Beck said that. They do not claim her. Okay. There's a reason why her own people don't even claim her. So I really, 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 really appreciate the engagement. If y'all are really liking what you're seeing, please, 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 please like this. Please, I want everybody that's in here right now to like this. If you have not liked this, please like this. Please share this. Let's get the word out. Please subscribe. We are a small channel. We are doing this for you. Usually there's 3 of us on here if this is your first time watching. Fortunately, most of us were impacted by the storm. I'm in Florida. We're all in Florida. DY is in Jacksonville. Gray Mars is in Clearwater, so he was greatly impacted by the storm. So please send prayers to everybody in Florida that was impacted by this. 70 said, Nora, you attended a HBCU, right? Yes, I did. FAMU, go Rattlers. I attended a HBCU. And just because you go to a HBCU, y'all, that don't make you black. And thank you, Katalia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And just because you go to an HBCU does not make you black. So I think it is offended when people say that lie. Oh, she's black because she went to an HBCU. Oh, she's black because she's an AKA. Just because you go just because you're in a part of a black sorority don't make you black. There's white deltas, there's white AKAs, there's white sigmas. Like we need to really. America, we really need to travel the world and open our eyes, please. Stop letting these people play in our faces. Travis said, should I go to an HBCU college? Absolutely. I think any American should go to an HBCU, black, white, but especially black people, you should go to an HBCU. And the reason why is because it has a rich history. But learning what I learned and seeing the indoctrination that we have in this country, I'm not convinced that anyone should go to college at this point. It's such an indoctrination in this country that I really struggle with this. Okay. And I really do. Thank you, Scott. I couldn't like this channel, though. You were doing a great job. And mainstream media is propaganda. We need people like you reporting the truth. Thank you, Scott. Yes. And that's why we started this channel, y'all. We started this channel to show 3 unique perspectives. I consider myself an independent. I'm a Christian and a mother first. And lastly, I consider myself as a biracial. I would say black because I was raised by my mother. She's black. American. Number 1, country first, or God first, country second, and family third. And this country does not have the value. We're losing our values here. Gray Mars, who's not on this chat, he is a Democrat. He's still sticking to it. He listens to us spill our truth every week, but he still is sticking to it. So I commend him because he's not on the Democratic payroll. He really loves his country. He's a veteran and he served. And lastly, D. White, he's a black Republican, breaking the molds, breaking the stereotype, and he's a small business owner. Oh, where Unfortunately, Gray Mars was impacted by the storm. He could not be here today, but he just got his power back on. He's still fixing up his house because he had a little hurricane issue, but he's doing great. He will be on Tuesday night with Dana with the Data. Please, I don't know if you guys know this. I know a lot of people like Judge Joe Brown, and y'all want to know where you can find him. You can find him on the Man Up Show. Type in Dana with the Data in YouTube. Many people don't know he has a podcast, y'all, and he's another truth teller. Judge Joe Brown is really, 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 really pushing boundaries, and we need more Black people like him speaking out on things. Travis said, I have a question. Isn't Indian considered Black? No, Indian is not considered Black, baby. Indian is, and I'm, you know what? Thank you for asking that. I had one more thing I wanted to share with you guys before I wrap this up, and I want to read this to you. Oops. It says Caucasian mother. Harris's mother, Shamalia Gopalin, self-identified as Caucasian in her daughter's 1964 birth certificate. So back in the day, Indians were considered Caucasian. All of a sudden now, and Judge Joe Brown educated me on this, and he is correct. I did not know this. That Indians used to consider themselves Caucasians, okay? But now all of a sudden they now consider themselves Asians. But for years, they considered themselves Caucasian, okay? And it says in 1923, the U.S. Supreme Court determined that Caucasian is not the same as white. So to answer your question, sweetheart, Indian is not Black, okay? Even though brown skin is not Black. Black is anybody of African descent. And this is why I say Kamala Harris is not Black. Kamala Harris, to answer what I think she is, I think she might be 1/10 African American, if that, or African descent, if that. So for that reason, I do not consider Kamala Harris Black. Katalia wrote in the chat, Dana with the Data or the Man Up channel or Judge Joe Brown. Scott said, no kidding, I am a Christian independent. I stick to policies and truth. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We need more light in this world. Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and we need to be spreading the light. And I'm gonna keep this up while we close out, because I want to make sure that Judge Joe Brown and Dana are getting their flowers and everyone knows where to find them, because I did not know I've been following Judge Joe Brown for months on X. I did not know he had a podcast until Dana invited us on. So I want to thank Katalia. She's the moderator for the Judge Joe Brown and the Dana with the Data podcast. I really appreciate everything that Dana's done for our network. So I want to support her and Judge Joe Brown in any way possible. Katalia wrote in the chat, Nora, class is always in session with the judge. Yes, class is always in session with the judge. So while y'all are, bored this evening or whatever, you have downtime, go check out Judge Joe Brown on his podcast, not on these interviews he be doing. Check him out on his podcast with Dana, because he knows the law. He brings the facts. He gets to speak freely and share. But again, we're going to wrap up. I appreciate y'all for spending this Saturday evening. Just to give you guys a preview for next week, we are going to break down and deep dive the Eric Adams indictment that came out. We haven't done it yet because of the hurricane, but we'll be doing that next week. Also, we've been doing research on the polls, and unfortunately, it's not looking good for Florida and Texas Republican candidates. So if y'all are not registered to vote, please, 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 please register. The deadline is approaching here in Florida. You can go to vote.org. And lastly, please, always, always, always vote, y'all. Do not let them tell you not to vote. It's important to vote. Our vote is so important, but it's not going to be important if you don't vote. They want you to think your vote don't count, okay? But it counts. And I'm going to close it out. Always vote. Peace, love, and have a nice weekend, y'all. And like, share, and subscribe.